How did you deal with loss?
Faith. You know, I'm Irish, I'm Catholic. The church has been a big part of my life.
Pierce Brosnan just made an announcement that has Hollywood in shock. The man who gave us the smoothest James Bond is now facing his greatest fear, and what he's planning next will break your heart. At 71, Pierce isn't just saying goodbye to Hollywood, he's preparing for something far more devastating. You see, there's a pattern in his life that's too horrific to be coincidence. His first wife died at 43. His daughter died at 41, both from the exact same disease. And now history might be repeating itself in the cruelest way possible. But here's what makes this story even more heartbreaking. Pierce Brosnan wasn't supposed to be James Bond. In fact, the role was stolen from him not once, but twice. And the woman who fought hardest for him to get it never lived to see it happen. This woman was Cassandra Harris, a Bond girl who became Pierce's first wife and the reason he became 007. But she carried a secret that would destroy their family for generations. To understand Pierce's current heartbreak, we need to go back to 1953 Ireland, where a 4-year-old boy was abandoned by his father and then left behind by his mother. Pierce Brosnan learned early that the people you love leave. His father vanished without a trace. His mother fled to London for work, leaving Pierce behind for 7 years. He was passed between relatives like an unwanted package, never staying long enough to belong anywhere. He learned to keep quiet, to observe, to survive as the perpetual outsider. But then something magical happened in 1964. His stepfather took him to see a movie that would change everything. Goldfinger. Sitting in that dark theater, watching Sean Connery command the screen, Pierce made a silent promise to himself. He would never be powerless again. Bond wasn't just a character to Pierce, he was everything Pierce wanted to become. Strong, confident, and in control. Fast forward to 1982. Pierce is broke, unknown, living on toast and tea in London. He auditions for a tiny role on a new TV show called Remington Steele, not as the lead, but as a murder victim who appears for one scene. But something incredible happened. The casting director saw something special, something magnetic. They gave him the lead role instead. Remington Steele became a massive hit with 15.6 million viewers, NBC's second highest rated new show. And suddenly, everyone was saying the same thing. He should be the next James Bond. But here's where the story gets cruel. In 1983, Pierce met Cassandra Harris at a party. She was a working actress, beautiful and strong-willed, with 2 children from a previous marriage. When Pierce looked at her, something clicked. They fell in love instantly. By 1980, they were married, and Pierce became a father to Charlotte and Christopher, giving them the stability he never had as a child. In 1983, they had a son together, Sean. Life felt complete. Then came the twist that would define Pierce's career. Cassandra was cast as a Bond girl in For Your Eyes Only. While she was filming, Pierce met the Bond producers. Cassandra believed in him completely and pushed him toward the role. The producers were interested, very interested, but Pierce was trapped in his Remington Steele contract. When word leaked that he might be the next Bond, NBC saw dollar signs and renewed the show just to keep him. Pierce watched helplessly as the Bond role went to Timothy Dalton instead. The betrayal stung, but something worse was coming. In 1987, while Pierce was filming in India, Cassandra started feeling sick. Really sick. They flew back to London, and the diagnosis hit like a sledgehammer. Ovarian cancer. Advanced, aggressive, everywhere. What followed were 4 brutal years of watching the woman he loved fight for her life. 8 surgeries, 18 months of chemotherapy. Her hair fell out, her body weakened, but Cassandra never gave up her strength or dignity. Pierce called himself the quiet party, always present but often helpless. Their 8-year-old son Sean would sometimes pretend to be the doctor, trying to make sense of why mommy was always sick. The hardest part was learning that this wasn't just bad luck. Cassandra's mother had died of the same cancer. It was genetic, a family curse passed down through generations. Now they had to worry about Charlotte too. On December 28, 1991, the day after Christmas, Cassandra died. She was only 43. Pierce held her hand as she whispered, "Please, darling, don't worry. It's just a life winding down." Even at the end, she was the strong one. Pierce suddenly found himself a single father to 3 grieving children, trying to hold together a family shattered by loss. But Cassandra had given him one final gift. In 1994, 3 years after her death, Pierce was finally cast as James Bond. The producers who had passed him over before now saw him as perfect for the role. His pain had aged him, given him depth. When GoldenEye hit theaters, it wasn't just Pierce's debut as Bond, it was a resurrection of the entire franchise. The film made $353 million worldwide and saved MGM from bankruptcy. Pierce threw himself into being Bond with a vengeance. He did 90% of his own stunts, including a terrifying bungee jump off a 220-meter dam that insurance companies refused to cover. His 4 Bond films made over $1.4 billion combined. He had achieved everything Cassandra wanted for him, but the victory felt hollow without her there to see it. Then, in 2004, came another crushing blow. Pierce was in the Bahamas preparing for his 5th Bond film when his phone rang. The producers delivered the news in a 47-second call. "You were a great James Bond. Thank you very much. Goodbye." After 4 massively successful films, they had fired him without warning. 3 movie deals disappeared overnight. His asking price plummeted from $12 million to $3 million. He had to let go of 12 staff members and fell into a deep depression. But Pierce had found love again. In 1994, he met journalist Keely Shea Smith at a beach party in Mexico. She wasn't impressed by his fame. She liked who he was as a person. They married in 2001 in a ceremony costing $2.3 million at an 800-year-old Irish abbey. Keely gave him 2 more sons, Dylan and Paris, and helped him rebuild his life after Bond. Just when Pierce thought he had found peace, the family curse struck again. In 2010, his adopted daughter Charlotte, now 39, was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. The same disease that had killed her grandmother and mother. For Pierce, it was like watching a nightmare repeat itself in slow motion. Charlotte fought for 3 years with the same courage her mother had shown. She got married just 2 weeks before she died, wanting her children to see that love still mattered. On June 28, 2013, Charlotte passed away at exactly 2 p.m. She was 41, 2 years younger than her mother had been. Pierce had now lost 2 of the most important women in his life to the same genetic disease. The grief was unbearable, familiar, and devastating. He stood at Charlotte's funeral holding the hands of her children, 15-year-old Isabella and 8-year-old Lucas, the same age as Charlotte and Sean had been when they lost their mothers. The tragedy didn't end there. Christopher, Pierce's adopted son, couldn't cope with losing his mother and sister. He turned to drugs and alcohol, ending up arrested multiple times for heroin possession. By 2024, paparazzi spotted him outside a London grocery store, gaunt and alone at 51, a shadow of the promising young man who once worked on Pierce's Bond films. Today, Pierce Brosnan is 71 years old. He's still acting, recently playing Dr. Fate in Black Adam, proving he can still command the screen. But more importantly, he's become an advocate. He's a UNICEF ambassador, marches with Greenpeace, and raises money for cancer research. When Charlotte was sick, he said he would do anything. Call anyone, go anywhere, beg if he had to, just to save her life. He couldn't save Charlotte, just like he couldn't save Cassandra. But he's still fighting to save others. Pierce has learned that sometimes the greatest strength isn't in being invincible like James Bond. Sometimes it's in being vulnerable, in using your pain to help others, and refusing to let tragedy have the final word. Through it all, Keely has stood by his side. After years of tabloids mocking her weight gain, she recently lost 100 pounds through walking, swimming, and self-respect. At At their 23rd wedding anniversary in 2024, Pierce called her his North, South, East, and West. She replied that he was the finest, loveliest, tenderest person she had ever known. Pierce Brosnan's story isn't just about a man who played James Bond. It's about a man who learned that real courage isn't about never falling down. It's about getting back up every time life knocks you down. It's about turning your deepest pain into your greatest purpose. And it's about understanding that sometimes saying goodbye isn't about giving up. It's about letting go with love, dignity, and grace.